Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Patty, and I appreciate you guys coming if you're here live. If not, thank you for uploading my video. My name is Patty Hall, and I have two different channels. I have Get Balanced 2020, and I have Divine Warrior Intuitive. Mainly, Get Balanced 2020 is how to transform your mind, spirit, and body together. And Divine Warrior is more about the intuitive, the spiritual, the more faith based, but also too what is intuition, empath, and some of the unseen things. And I also do intuitive tarot. So there's that. And so today, what I'm going to be talking about, whether you're on my Get Balanced channel or my Divine Warrior, there's a little bit of everything for both. Because in both my channels and my website, I get asked a lot of questions about communication. I get a lot of questions about, is someone coming back after a bad relationship, or maybe they had a argument and they want to go away and come back. And so I get a lot of questions about that. So we're going to sort of tackle a lot of communication things so that you can sort of see the red flags that are coming up, as well as maybe how to stop and diffuse an argument so that it doesn't go into something full blown that doesn't need to go there. Really, we shouldn't have to argue if we're grown adults, because there are ways to communicate without getting full blown. Because once we get really full blown in arguing, nobody's hearing anybody anyway, right? So it's just sort of like blah, 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 blah. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of differences in the constructive communication versus destructive communication, and how you can help yourself, whether it be through communication through your work, your friends, your family, whether it be through your spiritual faith and some things unseen, how to communicate in that way too. Woo! So anyway, so there's a lot of that. So one of the first things I am going to talk about, and if you have seen me in Divine Warrior Intuitive, yes, I'm in a little bit of a different background because I'd like to write some things down for you today. So the first thing I want to get across to most people that they do not understand about communication, and what what a lot of people talk about as being an empath, is that a lot of people have the ability to be very, very sensitive to other people's energies, and actually how to communicate through not even speaking a word. Because through all my college courses and all my degree stuff that in the earthly world, a lot of the psychology and human behavior and everything that we do, we communicate 67%, maybe even a little bit more now, but we communicate 67% without using our words. We use it basically through body language, through interactions, eye movement, energies, and things like that. So we can actually read a person by their non-verbal communication versus their verbal communication. That's why it's really important that we start going back to the way that we do things and not texting all the time, because that's a horrible way of communicating something very, very important. We cannot hear intonation. We cannot see the person. We cannot get some energy vibes on them or anything of that nature. So we cannot actually read them correctly if all we're doing is texting. How many of you have been misunderstood texting? How many times have you been misunderstood texting? Okay, so we have FaceTime, we have Zoom, we have all the abilities to be able to do something FaceTime, but we're not utilizing them. If we do that, we have much more clarity on our communication. If I'm looking at you and you're looking at me and I'm doing this, like, that's telling you I'm not really paying attention. But how can you do that in a text? They could be rolling their eyes. They could be doing this. You can't get that energy through a text. As an empath, I can't even get some of those energies through that text. I can get some, but I can't get all of them. So let's look at some of the different things of why we communicate on a level that doesn't work on a constructive basis, but more of a destructive. And so then let's go into all the different forms of that. So might want to get a pencil and paper, because you know what? We all communicate and make mistakes in our communication, but maybe there's a tool or a tip that will help you through this really short video. Hopefully keep it about 45 minutes, because I know you guys are really busy. But the thing is that we want to make sure that we are speaking on a constructive level and not a destructive level, that we're being understood and they're being understood. So it's really important, okay? So the first thing I'm going to write down, and we're going to do this, we're going to do constructive, and then we're going to do destructive, because there's two forms. Now, if you don't know the difference between these two, that constructive is something that you are going to build in a positive manner. This is something that you are going to grow, and something is going to be lifted up to a higher vibration. Destructive is basically division, breaking apart, it doesn't work, that kind of a thing. So think of destructive as like you're destroying or ripping something down. And that's what destructive communication does. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those two things. So when we talk about constructive communication, we want to be clear in what we're talking about. So when we do constructive, it brings clarity. Okay? If we do it destructively, it brings confusion and unclarity. It's unclear for many of you guys out there. So the thing is, we need clarity. So how do we get that? How do we work for that? So let's take a really simple conversation. You're having a conversation. Most of you guys out there who contact me are usually in a relationship, so we'll sort of use that, because here's the thing. In a future relationship, you can use this, okay? Whether it's with your mom, your family, a friend, a lover, a spouse, whatever, you can use this. Okay, so clarity. So we have to now find out whose clarity is it. So when we're discussing with somebody, we have our perspective. This is our perspective. And then this is theirs. Now, do you think that they meet up? No, they don't. And I teach this a lot. Especially these two are going to be the most biggest things to help you understand and clear any of your communications up. So we call it active listening. So when I'm having a conversation, my ideas, my journey, my process is never going to be the same as somebody else's. If we expect them to understand without the clarity, without the communication, we are setting ourselves up for a destructive way of communicating, okay? So we are going to look at my perspective, and here's two formulas I'm going to have you write down. So my perspective plus somebody else's perspective equals an outcome of feelings or emotions. And here's another thing we'll discuss a little bit later, but this is a formula I want you to write down. Expectations, I'm going to put this down on the bottom. Expectations plus reality equals what feeling or emotion? Okay? Because here's the thing. If I have a perspective, you have a perspective, we're making a conversation, but we're butting heads and we don't agree to each other, well, that doesn't get anywhere. That's destructive. If I be an active listener and listen to what they're saying, and they say, well, you know what, I don't, I'm a Republican, I don't do this or whatever. So you have to ask them, go a little bit beyond that. Just say, okay, so where do you form that opinion? Ask questions. That would be another bullet point. Ask questions, because that is telling the other person that you value them enough to be able to be listening to them and have value in what they are saying. However, the information is not 2 plus 2 is not equaling 4. It's not. So it's like the input is not accurate. So, okay, so what is it? Where did that start? Where did it come from? How did you come to that conclusion? A lot of our foundations, and I won't go into that, that's another Get Balanced video, but you go into where their roots started, where the foundation is. Where did they get that concept in their mind? Is that concept a little bit warped? Were they abused? Were they traumatized? So is that foundation a little bit cracked? Okay, so we all have a cracked foundation, but how cracked is it? Pretty much, okay? However, when it doesn't equal 4, we have to continue to ask questions until we get the answer and the result that we then now can understand. Oh, really? I didn't see it that way. Wow, that's just a whole new way of looking at something. This is what we do in school. We have to ask questions until we get the subject matter that we're studying. You have to do that with another human being to communicate more effectively, right? So when you look at your perspective, understand that their perspective is not the same thing. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and go to the next thing. When we have constructive and destructive, we look at our words meeting our actions. A lot of the times, so the words here are not meeting their actions. Now, I get a lot of people that come to me. Are they cheating on me? I used to be in criminal justice, for a lot of you guys know, and they'll say, well, can you go in and do some surveillance on my spouse or whatever? And it's like, why do you have to come to me? If you have that indication and have that intuition that they probably are, they probably are. So what do you want, a photograph to make it more hurtful, more whatever? So the thing is, sometimes when words are meeting our actions, hey, there's clarity, there's trust, there's truth, there's all the constructive things that we have in a conversation. If we do not have clarity, or our words are not meeting up with our actions, then we start getting confusion, we start getting unclear signals, we start getting all those kind of things. So which one do we look for? Do we look for the words? Do we look for the actions? A lot of the times we want to look for the actions, not the words so much, because it's so easy. Did you know that our tongue is the most dangerous weapon that we have in our human body, or actually anything that we could hold, well, guns and things like that, but on our body? It can destroy so quickly, but it can also lift up and really build somebody up. So remember that the tongue is the most destructive thing and not to really be trusted. So we want to trust our actions. So if somebody's actions are not, I won't go into dating, but here's the thing. When you're dating, and say you're in the first to the third dates, if suddenly something is not adding up, 2 + 2 is not equaling 4, you have to be bold enough and courageous enough to ask them, hey, I just did this with somebody over the holidays. So they said that they were going to be going to California around the 1st, coming back. Okay, not a problem, because they're moving up to Oregon, right? Not a problem. I get a text and says, hey, I'm coming through your area and I'm just getting back on the 10th. Because then earlier they had said, well, I'm going to be leaving on the 10th. But what I'm trying to get at is he just got back on the 10th, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You said, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm here now. No, huge red flag. When there is confusion, there's not honesty, there's not clarity, and it's not to be trusted. You're the one that has the power to ask and make sure that the information is being properly input, and you yourself feel comfortable with that information, whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree or disagree, that it is your responsibility for your power to be able to understand the information coming in. So if that's a date, I said, I don't like games, don't like to play. See ya. So I don't have time to waste for that kind of games and energy. Well, no, don't have times. That's destructive. You're already starting out in the wrong foot without having honesty and truth. You need to go in with very constructive, clear understanding and intent, especially if you're dating. That's another video, but you really need to go in with almost an interview mind and constructive and very clear, very uplifting, positive kind of communication. The other thing is that confusion definitely can hide things, and nothing is hidden. Again, that goes, nothing is hidden. Nothing hidden is just being truthful. So you can either hide things through that or not. Okay. So another thing is that we're looking at, I won't go into it, but if you're looking at constructive, you're looking at somebody's integrity. Again, that goes to truthful, clarity, honest, asking the question. You're looking for somebody's morals. Those are the two things that you want to look at first as far as dating and that kind of a thing. That's another subject. And the same thing is common goals. Okay, so we'll go on with that. And then what we want to do is we want to also look at, now we're going to go to expectations. Then we're going to move on to the next thing. So when we're looking at expectations and reality, now I really want you to really pay attention to this, especially if you're a Divine Warrior Intuitive, when you watch my YouTube, every week, every day, or whatever I'm on there. So expectations, that is you. So you are going into whatever it is with a certain expectation, right? So I want to go to this vacation, and say the pictures of your resort is beautiful and wonderful, and you get there and it's not that at all. Your expectations were let down. So we have to go in, and you can use this with people, places, things, your car, you buy a new car, blah, 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 whatever it is. You can use it for anything. So that's why I tell my daughter and myself, don't expect anything. Because here's the thing, the reality is not yours. The reality is X. So that X could be a person with another journey, another mind thought. It could be a place, it could be a thing, and whatever the outcome is, if this does not equal your expectations, then your feeling or your emotion is put in the toilet, or you're lifted up, or whatever. So maybe somebody's got a romantic, maybe you want a small wedding, go to Vegas, just, elope, but somebody else has got the reality of they want a big wedding, they're going to surprise you, take you hot air ballooning, do the ring, and you're just like, this is not what I want. So you're frustrated. There's the communication is not clear, and it was broke down. But when you have your expectations lowered to say, hey, whatever happens, happens, let's go with the flow. Or, you know what? I'm going to find out this other person's details in their mind on how they're thinking and how they're actually going to be processing, so that I can make sure that I'm on the same page. I'm a Virgo. I'm very detailed. I'm very analytical. But if you take somebody else who's very artistic, they're like, yeah, whatever. No, that doesn't work. But I can understand if I ask, okay, so how do you want to do this? How do you want to go there? We go to Disney World a lot. I'm a Disney agent, but we've grown up. My daughter worked at Disney, so we've gone to Disney a lot. We know what to expect. But when we first didn't expect, we had to ask each other, what do we want? What do we like? What do we do? So we have each other's expectation and reality that meets it and matches it. Then we had a great time. We had a really great time. So if you go in buying a new car, your expectation is to have all this stuff, and the salesman, here's an example, my friend, okay, I do leather work. I'm a leathersmith from Saddles on Down. I have an affiliate that does car upholstery. Most people will buy a car, they buy a car with leather seats, but then they go in to get their seats, maybe it ripped or something. They take it in to go get it fixed to my friend's place. And the reality is, hey, you bought leather, but this is really vinyl, or it's bonded leather, which isn't like really thin leather on top of a fabric, But the thing is, they think they bought real leather. They didn't. So what do they get? They get frustrated, angry, pissed because somebody lied to them. So we have to actually really look at what the reality is. Ask questions. This is where you ask, ask, ask. Because if you don't, this is where this gets all muddled. All right? And then this is where we get into, I'll step into the next segment because I don't even know where we're at here. Okay, 20. Perfect. So where we get into the next segment of, okay, so I got that clarity down. I got that down. But maybe there's a blurb in there. Maybe there's something that isn't quite understood. Okay? So I don't fight. I just don't. There's no reason to. I don't raise my voice. There's a few times that I have, and then I have to calm myself down because it's not effective. It is not effective debating. It's not effective communication. It's not effective, period. So we have to back ourselves up. We cannot control what the other person does, but we can control what we do when we go to communicate. So we're going to move, and there is so much more to this, but I'm trying to keep the video short for you guys. If you would love more of this stuff, I would be happy to do another video. However, you're just going to have to comment, subscribe, email me, like, share, whatever. Okay. So, but the thing is, we're going to go into talking about, okay, so we have a relationship or I have something and you're just starting to argue. Okay. There's two ways to find out in your argument where that person actually stands. Now, I'm going to talk about relationships here for a second. So if you're getting into a relationship, this is a good way to figure out where you stand. And also if this communication is going to work, or you need to go to some coaching, or that partner needs to go to some coaching, or maybe you need to do it together. So you're in a conversation, you're beginning not to agree. These are the two things. This is another point I would like you to write down. When you're talking to that other person, now I'm going to bet that everybody that's watching this, when you go out and you start talking to somebody, you're going to start, oh, I'm going to listen to what she said. I used to do this. I used to do this all the time when I was learning new techniques. And then I'd play around with it, and then I would test it. And it was just so exciting because it's true. Okay. So the thing is that when you're actually talking to that person and things are starting to get heated in that conversation, I'm going to go to my notes here. You want to listen. Are they using the word I, or are they using the word you? So and I'll give you some examples. So if you're, say, the dish is in the sink. You both work 2 jobs. You're both super busy. You both just don't have time. You're both exhausted when you get home from work. And the dishes in the sink sit in the sink, and they sit overnight. So maybe you're tired. Maybe she's thinking, okay, I'll just do them in the morning when I get up. He's thinking, dirty dishes in the sink overnight is not acceptable. Okay, so we have 2 different journeys, 2 different perspectives. Okay, we don't have clarity on whose job it is. We also, the voices or the words are not meeting up with the actions. Nothing's hidden here. It's just that your intentions are hidden. But the thing is, he wants them done. I'm telling you this because this actually happened to me when I was married. So I woke up to a note, dirty dishes overnight, not accepted. I was like, oh, really? Talk about wanting to hit a red flag. Woo! That really hit me off, but I wasn't doing my homework back then. But the thing is that, one, you've got 2 different ways of growing up, 2 different journeys, 2 different ways of doing things. Also, 2, maybe she's not feeling good. Maybe he's tired, but he just wants the house neat and at no cost. Okay, kind of thing. So what do? You sit there and you have a conversation about it. Okay, I was really tired. I was feeling exhausted. I didn't want to do them because I knew I was going to be doing them in the morning. That conversation starts out with I. So I'm expressing how I want to share my feelings on how I felt in the purpose of why I didn't do the dishes that night, okay? On the other hand, he didn't want to talk about it at all. However, he grew up that way, that wasn't acceptable. But the first thing that comes out of that person's mouth is, you need to be doing that before you go to bed. Okay, the beginning of that conversation was you. So when we have an I conversation and a you conversation, constructive, destructive. And the reason why you becomes destructive, when you start putting off your perspective onto somebody else that you had no explanation to them to why, or getting that information, maybe when you got married, hey, you do the dishes, I do the cooking. The dishes want to be done every day. These little things sound really minuscule, but they are so important to understanding your partner or anybody that you're living with, roommates. How many of you guys are out there and have a roommate that has just like a hoarding bedroom, but they carry that out in the living room? But you want the living room nice, make your bedroom a mess. That communication has to happen first. Same with dating. All these conversations have to happen first. Because when you start out with I, you begin to project what you need. Not what you want, but what you need to be able to have them understand this is a priority to me. But when that person begins to put, you need to do this, well, if you would have done that, I would have never done this. How many times have you heard that? Well, if you would have done this, this wouldn't have happened. How many times have you heard that? That is putting blame onto the other person, destructive, and it's taking responsibility and accountability off of themselves for something they should have taken responsibility and accounting for. I'm going to say that again. When you start a conversation out with you, you take the blame off of yourself, which is very destructive, and you put it on somebody else when you should have taken responsibility and accountability for the poor communication or not being understood or whatever it is. Okay, so these two keys are really important. So as you go out today or wherever you are, or the next day whenever you watch this, listen to how people talk to each other. Or maybe you're in a supermarket and you're listening to somebody argue. Listen to how they talk to each other. Then you will understand, oh gosh, sorry. Then you will understand how someone can actually have a breakdown of communication, okay? And then it begins into a heated argument. And then it begins into somebody feeling their vibrations go down and somebody's feeling puffed up. Yeah, I'm right. I'm right. Yep, this is the way it should have been. Then you could end up with abuse. You could end up with all, I'm not saying it ends there, but these are things how it escalates into that. Been in that industry, worked in that industry. So no. Hey, Abigail. Hey, Star. Well, thank you. Welcome for coming. So did I say that right? Coming for welcome. Welcome for coming. Anyway, okay. So what happens is, so now you're in an instance where you got a heated relationship. You got a heated argument. Somebody doesn't, here's another thing. How do you communicate when you argue? So, or debate, whatever you want to call it, or fight. There's 3 levels. And which one are you guys? So do you debate and get the information, debate it, and walk away and, okay, I understand her. I don't agree with her. I think she's nuts, but I understand her. Okay, yeah, honey. That kind of thing. Or do you get to a level where you argue and you're like, yeah, well, whatever, if you only knew what I was thinking, and it gets up a little bit. But when you begin to fight, nobody is paying attention to nobody. Each person is right, and no matter what, that escalates. You might as well just call it quits for a while, because that's not going to go anywhere. So what I'm talking about is a good, healthy argument. Every single person on this earth does it. If you don't, then you're lying. Because every person does. Well, I don't argue. Yes, you do. Probably even arguing with yourself right now. Anyway, so what we want to do is have a constructive way to argue. So when we do a constructive way of arguing, sometimes it might even take a round table with a facilitator until you learn how to do that, or a coach or something, to be able to not only know when to stop and diffuse it, or when to keep moving, or when to ask different questions. So what we call that is a round table, or we can even do a family round table. That's a whole nother video. So what happens is we then begin to get more understanding of each other's values, morals, and things that we need to have a healthy relationship. So what do? We need to learn how to diffuse. Now, what I mean by diffusing, so the element of where that level is going as far as an argument begins to escalate, and the decibels get higher and higher and higher and louder and louder and louder. Where do we cut that off? Where do we diffuse it? When the conversation begins to get to a point where it seems like these two things are popping up and nobody is listening, because that perspective and their perspective is not being heard, it's time to diffuse. Because it's really important to understand the other person's perspective, again, whether we agree or disagree or not. Okay? So what we have to do is back it up. We got to take that horse by the reins and back that puppy up. Okay? And then we can come back again. So there's a lot of ways to diffuse. It all just depends on you and the relationship. Now, if you're in a work environment, there's not a whole lot you can diffuse. You can argue so much with your boss, your management, before you get fired. But the thing is, you can actually listen, give a healthy perspective from your side, and it depends on your boss or your manager, whoever, will that go back and sit there and maybe chew on those words for a while and come back and say, you know what, you're right. They may disagree with you at that moment, but walk away, because if it's a valid point, if it's a valuable point, if it is a constructive point, that's, a lot of bosses really hate employees coming into their rooms, because all they're doing is complaining. But the thing is, if it is a constructive point of view, valid point, they may go back and come back and say, hey, you know what? That actually was a really good point. I thought about that. It's okay. You can go back and correct anything. That's why words are the most destructive, and our tongue is the most destructive organ that we have in our body. It is really important to be careful with the words. That's why we diffuse. If you begin to even think that a cuss word is going to come out of your mouth, cuss words, it's like my daughter fights me on this. Mom, cuss words are just a word. Well, they are, but they're actually a demeaning, low vibrational, low energy, a destructive way of thinking, because it devalues the other person in what they believe in. Some of you may argue it. Keep arguing. I work in this industry. I've taken college courses. I've seen people. I've seen it hurt a lot of people. So you can keep cussing. However, it is a very low vibrational energy, and it will keep you lower there. So the thing is with diffusing, it all depends where you're at, who you're with. Like with the boss, you may have to just zip it and come back later when they can think about it, or maybe you have to enter it at a different angle. Okay, well, he didn't listen to me at all. Was it how I said it? Was it the way I said it? Or was the information even valid at all? That's what the boss is having to take in. So we have to sort of zip it. That's a diffusing moment that we have to sit there and whoop. But it doesn't mean that we zip it and that's it. No, we have to know the time when to stop. It's like what your parents tell you, when to pick your battles. However, this might be a battle worth fighting for. However, we don't need to go into a situation where we're fighting and then nobody's listening. Diffuse it, zip it. And then just say, hey, can we talk about this later maybe, or when there's a better time, or we have more time? Because sometimes we run out of time, or a boss has 5 minutes, but this conversation needs 15. Okay, so it might be that way. A teacher might be that way. Maybe you have something, a counselor, that you really want to get something out, and it's at the end of your counseling session or your coaching session, but you really need to get it out. It's really important to sit there and say, hey, can we talk about this, next time, because I really got to talk about this, or whatever. Diffuse it, walk away, whatever. So you walk away. You can zip it, zip, and then walk away, or you can just walk away. Okay? Walking away doesn't solve anything. You have to express what you feel to at least get some release for the moment. Release is really, really important for stress. I'm not even going to go into that today. So one way to diffuse is walk away. Now, how long do you walk away? Now let's go to a relationship. So you're in an argument and you're like, hey, let's take a break for a minute because I feel like I didn't say you're getting really heated. I didn't say that. I said, I'm getting really heated and I'm not thinking right and I don't want to say something or I'm going to regret. I didn't say you are getting heated. We need to take a break, or whatever it is. You be the instigator, say, let's take a break, let's go away, and do not say, okay, because if that person is one of those that clams up and doesn't talk to you for days, that is not healthy. If it's days, it's a week, that's abuse. That is abuse. That is not the way healthy conversations go. What you do is you both agree to a time. Hey, let's take a walk. Let's do something. Take away. Let's come back in 15 minutes when we're cooled down. Because it is a chemical thing that is going on in your brain that literally things sort of shut down and you're not even listening. You're not even hearing. And that's two different things. So the thing is that you walk away. Then you say, okay, you agree to come back 15 minutes, an hour. Hey, let's pick this up tomorrow. Maybe somebody's going off to work. Now they're all pissed off. They're going off to work, which never do an argument while you're going to work, because then you carry that energy into work, talking about energies. But the thing is, you want to pick a healthy boundary, 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And if you say tomorrow morning, let's finish this, that's fine. Do not go days. Do not go days. Give it 24 hours. 24 hours max. I would put that down as a point. Don't go 24 hours max. Most people won't even go to bed. I talked to an elder, 88 years old. I asked him, what's your thing? We never go to bed angry. We finish what we need to do in that same day. And I've heard that from elders over and over and over. Because anytime I meet somebody that has been married 30, 40, 50, 60 years, I ask them all kinds of questions. And all of them say, we don't go to bed angry. And that's the thing. Some people don't wake up. Even at my age, even in their 20s, 30s, they don't wake up. Don't go to bed angry. Some of you might think, okay, well, maybe you guys are really light and airy usually. And so the one way to diffuse is maybe you tell a joke. And you're like, yeah, but that's not the time. Sometimes it actually is needed. For me, it's like, yeah, I'll just cut a joke. And they're like, where'd that come? I said, because we need to take a break. We really are getting, somebody whose maturity level has to be a little bit more above to say, this is a time where we just need to chill and take a break. So you can find your own way to diffuse. So whatever it is, taking a walk, don't get in a car all heated and start driving and speeding and doing ever, not healthy. Take a walk, go sit outside, get some fresh air. Go to your man cave, go to your female cave, whatever it is, and just separate. That's the whole key, is to separate, come back with a more level mind, and then begin the process of fixing whatever it is or understanding whatever it is. All right. So that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg on how to argue constructively, okay? So I just didn't want to get around that. Now with families, you know what? It's really a good element to actually have a round table once a week with the whole family. And having, if you're blessed to have a male father, husband figure in your home, have that father figure take the lead, because this is where the children look to the father as the lead, the person, well, this is just their role: a protector, a provider, a leader, somebody that they can count on for stability. If you don't have that in your home and the guy isn't stable, I wouldn't suggest that. But the thing is, if you're a single person, single parent, it is your responsibility to sit down and then set the rules. How did everybody's day go this week? How did it go? What concerns does everybody have, or what's going on? This is where you find out and become an active parent in communicating with your kids, and actually learn who's being bullied, who's being teased, whose grades are dropping and maybe going into drugs, or maybe doing things they shouldn't, or stuffing clothes in their backpack and changing at school into little hottie pants and little hottie t-shirts. These kind of roundtables once a week in communicating. It is not to point at the kids and say, well, you didn't do this. No, it is a family table to communicate. What is your needs? How is it going? And if you're one of the parents that say, well, this is my house, you live in my house, and I get that. I get that. However, they are growing up. You are setting an example. They are watching and learning, and they need to have a mind of their own. Okay, so you need to communicate. What is it? For example, if I would have had a round table way back when my daughter was 4 or 5 years old, I went and bought a beautiful horse for her, because I'm a horse person, most of you know. I bought a beautiful horse because I wanted to go and ride horses with my daughter. Bought a beautiful horse. She went out, she rid it, but then she found out there's chores with it, and then it just became, and then she gradually lost interest. She went to counseling through our divorce, and what I found out was we sat in that counseling session, and she was terrified. These kids get terrified. We're their parents. They get terrified to say what they really want and need. We have to be open to what their wants and needs are, so they can grow up to the human being that they were created to be. And she said, Mom, horses are really not my thing. And I wasn't devastated, because I've been an empath all my life. So I knew somewhere when I bought this horse that if this wasn't her thing, which I sort of had an idea, but I was hoping, because this is something we dream. But the thing is, I knew that I had to take the responsibility for this horse, and is this one that I wanted? I had bought that horse knowing that possibility could be there. So when she said that, and I said, really? I said, oh, that's okay, because, what is it that you like? What is it? I didn't crush her to the point where she couldn't talk to me about it. She was able to communicate as a child what she needed to share. Terrified as she was, thinking that I was just going to go all off and everything. No, that's not. My mother put me into tap and ballet, and I hate it. I hated it at 6 years old, 9 years old. I hate it to this day. Sorry, but I do. And but she put me in that for years and years and years, because this was her dream, her thing. So communicating at a round table could be really, really effective, not only for a couple, but for a family. I would suggest, as couples, you have to date at least once a month, preferably once a week. You have to keep that fire going, or at least have a round table. Hey, babe, what's going on this week? Do we have anything that we have to worry about? Any issues? Is there anything that we should be doing? And hey, by the way, baby, am I doing okay in that area? Is there something I could be doing better? Something you want? Some fun? Those kind of things. That has to be communicated. And if you're shy to talk about that, then that's some self-work, some shadow work that needs to be done there. All right. So let me go ahead and recap, because I wanted to keep this short. A lot of the times too, diffusing cultural. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I got a download plus along this. So the last thing I do want to talk about is that we want to be making sure that I love culture. I'm an intercultural person. I'm an interracial person. I like those kind of relationships. They're exciting to me. I love learning. I love teaching, that kind of thing. However, if you become intercultural or interracial, there is a difference, and we have to, again, even be 10 times more mindful of each other's perspective, each other's clarity, because when we do that, things not only we think are hidden and then we go to that negative low vibration, it might be a cultural difference. Even if we talk about, I've been married to an African from Africa, and I've also been married to an African American or Black. They're not from Africa, but they are Black. And there is even a difference in our culture, not only to the fact that we live differently, their food is differently, and we should embrace that. And if we cannot communicate each other's likes and dislikes in each culture, then we are going to have a problem in the future. So, Southern food is sometimes not the same as French food that I grew up in. So we have to find out a balance. So you're going to have a lot more work in communicating. Not wrong with it at all. It is really an awesome, awesome experience in learning and growing, but it has to be a two-way street. If you got one that doesn't want to learn about a culture and the other one does, then you're going to have problems there. That's where the round tables come in, really, really come in. The other thing is that, and we can talk about cultural relationships or international relationships or even dating. Oh my gosh, dating is a whole new game. That's a communication thing that I should do a communication on dating, because that's a whole different game. This thing about ghosting people is the most rude thing that anybody could do to another human being, let alone use a fake profile and put. I had a gentleman who was African American using a white military guy's, and then next week it was using somebody else's, and then a little bit off there, but but I'm talking about. And then if you are honest with them, then they're ghost you. This ghosting thing is the worst communication that you could ever do. And that is just a maturity thing. That's a game, and it's I call them man boys or girls, female girls rather than women or men. And maturity is a man and men, and a maturity in a woman. Very big difference there. So if you're ghosting people, just say, hey, you know what? Not, things are just not really coming. I'm not really interested. I really thank you for your time. However, I'm going to keep moving on. I don't know how hard that is. Why is that so hard for people's concept? Why is it that you just got to stop and the other person sitting there, what did I do? What did I say? And it's not, and it has to be on that other person. Please stop ghosting. Worst thing to do. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. And it also, too, not only with that, and I won't get into that, communication, a lot of fear comes in communication. Now, if you haven't watched the fear video that I did on YouTube, please go watch it. It's on both channels now. That is really huge in communication because people fear rejection. People fear confrontation. And this is, again, getting back to the roots and foundations and a growing process of healing and getting to a place in your life where you're not afraid to ask questions that you need to be asking, because not only does it not waste your time, it doesn't waste something. I'm talking about dating. You're not wasting your time. You're not wasting the other time. You should know within that first date if you really want to go on to a second or third. By that third date, you should already have asked so many questions, not interrogating. There's a way to do it, ladies. There's a way. Well, men, I don't know. There's a way to do it, though. But the thing is that you want to be able to ask the questions in a polite, nice manner, to get some background on them, to get energy, to find out if that's really the person that you want to continue on. If it's not, don't be nice and say, well, okay, let's go on another date. And then you're really not that interested in them. This happens. People contact me all the time, and it happens all the time, and it wastes so much people time, especially if you have the intent to get married, have children, and move in that direction, and that other person is thinking, I don't want kids, you're just wasting that time. Okay, so communicating in dating is a whole new avenue, and that's where I shine. So, all right, and social media, guys, that's the last thing I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to touch just for a second. Social media is there to basically tell you or give information, just short information. People that share, I'll tell you right now, people that share the information that is intimate, family, that kind of a thing, that is really putting somebody out there, that information is out there forever. And not only that, employers look at that. Now, remember, I worked in or did criminal justice, so employers look at that, police look at that, any law enforcement looks at that. Anything that you're going to want funding for, so maybe you're in housing and you're, doing something, the housing looks for that. Any services may look for that. So it's really important when you communicate on social media to communicate in more of clarity. Make sure it's factual. If you look at a picture and you look at the description and you're like, oh wow, oh really, oh yeah, oh really. So much can be photoshopped. I can put a Photoshop up and you'd never know it was Photoshop, but then you have to look at the source. Is the source even credible? I mean, I do this all the time. I do research all the time on things, especially I'm not going to lie. I do a background check on every single person. I go back, or if I date 3 times, they get a background check. I'm sorry, but you know what? I value my life. I value my safety. I value my daughter's got a mother. I'm going to do a background check. I have no problem doing that. Do I check on Facebook? Yes, I do. I only see what's going on, what the integrity of that person is. When they're talking and bashing about so much or bashing somebody, that's integrity and morals. That's a communication thing. Use it to your advantage, especially if you're dating. But I would say be really, really, really mindful what you put on there, and the less is better, because the thing is, people, not only YouTube and everybody else is watching, but people that you may want a special job about and good money about may be watching, and you may lose your opportunity. All right. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, let's recap. If you needed to write anything down, remember, constructive is clear, it's clarity. Destructive is confusion and unclear. Perspective is yours. You need to find out their other person's perspective if you're going to have healthy communication. You have to do that. You got to be watching their actions more than their words. Okay? And then, because the thing is, if it's not meeting up, if 2 and 2 is not equaling 4, you better be putting your antennas up. And the first time you put antennas up, you better be asking questions. Because if you have antenna after antenna after antenna, you better be running the other way. Because that person's morals and integrity they don't have that as a value. Even if they say they do, oh yeah, I'm a good person. Why do you have to say you're a good person if you're a good person? That makes no sense to me. So you want to do that. Start your conversations out, your arguments out, or anything out with I. And you know what? You can teach that technique to your partner. I did that. And even though it was extremely hard for the other person, because they're in a habit of blaming others for what they do and their responsibility, it is hard to change that. It does take time. When they do it, please lift them up. Thank you for sharing your feelings. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really like that you started the conversation out with I, so I can understand you. I can understand you better. So lift them up when they're doing that, because sometimes it is really, really hard. And if you do not lift that person up while they change to that I mentality, they're going to go back to that old way. And why should I change if you're not recognizing it? So really, really important. Lift up, embrace, grow that person up. And then lastly, make sure that your expectations, don't even expect. Go into something, especially if it's another person, because if that person says, I'm going to call you at 7 o'clock to go on a date, Or maybe you went out and they said, well, I'll call you tomorrow around 7. And your expectation, they're going to call you around 7. The reality is they blew you off or didn't want to do it, or maybe they had another date and they are like, oh crap, I forgot to call her. well, then you're disappointed, you're sad, you're frustrated, you're not happy. Well, right there, that's a red flag. Why didn't you call me? You said you were going to call me about 7. I figured by 7:30 you'd be calling me. Why didn't you call me? Were you in the hospital? Were you at a funeral? No. No. Okay, well, you know what? It's not going to happen again. Making them accountable is really important. It's setting your foundation, your boundaries, which there's another video on standards and boundaries, but you're setting that foundation right off from the get-go, what you expect and what you think that their reality should be for yourself. Now, if this is a man boy, he'll blow you off a couple of times. If you allow him to, he'll keep coming back because he's only wanting to get this anyway. You know what that means. But the thing is that if he's a man boy, he's just out there for manipulating to get what he wants. And if he can walk all over you, he will. But when he says he's going to call it 7, he doesn't, then you say, no, that's not acceptable. You know, and just like the gentleman that I told you in the very beginning that was driving here, nope, not acceptable. Well, I'm here now. Nope, not acceptable. Sorry. If your words are going to match your actions, you better make those actions match first. Well, and then do they say they're sorry? And are they using sorry as an excuse? That's another whole thing. But the thing is, expectations plus the reality. Is the outcome a high vibration, lifting up, growing, constructive, or is it destructive? And lastly, do you know how you know? Is you listen to your intuition. You listen to that inner intuition of what is going on, what you're hearing, how it's making you feel from your spirit out. Because your spirit is not only your GPS, it's your protection, it's your guidance, it's everything. It's saying, no, red flag, dude go. And you're like, yeah, but he's so cute, he's good looking, and red flag, go. Spirit is telling you, go. I'm trying to protect you, but you're like, oh yeah, but whatever. And then you end up in a situation or a relationship that you should have never even started in the first place. So I hope this was helpful. If you could please like, share, subscribe, and I would love any comments, any kind of videos that you would like to see. I am gonna, because of the algorithms that YouTube is doing, it's really thrown mine off apparently. So I'm going to be shifting these. I'm going to be uploading them to Divine Warrior, but I'm going to be doing these in Get Balanced 2020. So if you haven't subscribed to Get Balanced 2020 on YouTube, please do that. And then hit the bell and the notifications will be coming up for videos like this. And again, you just go to down below or just type in on YouTube, Get Balanced 2020. Subscribe, hit the bell, share. There's a lot of videos on mindset, and which is how to transform to a positive, constructive mindset. Also to help you with your spiritual growth, but also too a lot about new food and nutrition, because my degree is also in food nutrition. So that's for that, and I would really love to see more people there. I've now combined both of those sites together, but Get Balanced 2020 is about your mindset and your health and your body, and the Divine Warriors about spirit, intuition, and also intuitive tarot. So if you like that kind of stuff too, I can do a whole bunch of videos on that. But this is for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it helps. I hope there's some good tools and tips in that for you. And if you would like more videos like this, I would love your comments, your feedbacks. Please do that. And we will see you on the next time. For those of you that are on Divine Warrior Intuitive, I'll be doing the moon next here in just a few minutes. Take care, and we will see you soon. Thanks, Abigail and Star. Talk to you soon. Okay.